Okay, let's go.
Alright, is it going? Alright, well, how do you pronounce your first name?
I pronounce my first name Adonis.
Adonis. Okay, I didn't want, that's how I thought it was, I just didn't want to get it incorrect.
Most pronounce it Adonis, that's how it's usually pronounced, but I pronounce it Adonis.
Okay, and you're an attorney at law for Federikson Byron, PA?
Yes, I am indeed.
Could you just quickly explain to us what that entails?
What being a lawyer at Federikson Byron entails. I am a partner at the law firm of Federikson Byron. I've been there now, this will be my 13th year. As a partner, I share in the profits and losses of the law firm. I have responsibilities for trying to generate client relationships in order to bring clients into the firm and, of course, generate revenue. I assign work, I supervise work, I manage client relationships, and I actually do some of that work myself.
Okay. How did you, when did you know that you wanted to become an attorney over everything else?
I had a horrible summer experience. I went to MIT to be a chemical engineer. The summer between my junior and sophomore year, I worked for a company, a chemical company called DuPont in their Bell, West Virginia plant. My experience there was, I had a job assignment that I could have done with an 8th grade education, and I thought if this is what I'm going to do after I get 4 years of an undergraduate degree, I didn't want to do that. And I went back to school, complained to an upperclassman, a senior chemical engineering student who was going to go to law school. And he told me about 2 classes, Law, Technology, Interface, and Technology in the Law. I took those classes, and that was my introduction to technology and law, and that sparked my interest of going to law school.
Oh, wow. So you just kind of figured it out as you went along, you just decided that was perfect for you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I loved Perry Mason when I was a kid and all of that, but no, that was the spark for me going to law school.
Which law school did you go to? I
went to the University of Washington in Seattle.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, that's pretty far out there. I'm trying to just keep things rolling so we always have things to talk about.
I'm here with
you. We could go into the Judiciary a little bit. I had a few questions about what the senatorial courtesy is and how does that work?
The what?
Senatorial courtesy. That's one of our terms.
No, I don't know that term.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, we have a weird book.
You have your book?
Yeah, we turned ours in today. Oh, well, then we can just move on to a different question because we had that on our final, and I don't think I even knew that.
Senatorial courtesy.
Well,
yeah, well, tell me what it was.
I don't know. So I did get that question wrong. All right. Well, what level of courts do you usually work in?
At this stage in my career and the area of law that I practice in, I'm no longer litigating. I can talk to you about what I was litigating, and right now I work in the area called intellectual property, patents. There is such a thing as infringement litigation and the like. I'm not really involved in that. I work on securing and procuring patent rights for individuals. When my clients get into litigation, I'm involved at the outset, but we pass that work on to the litigators who actually go to court. When I started practicing, I worked for the state of Colorado as an assistant attorney general for the state of Colorado. I was in state district courts, I was in state appellate courts, and I also was in federal district court and federal appeals courts. I've never gone to the Supreme Court, either at a state level or federal level. I also worked at the Attorney General's office here in the state of Colorado, and my practice in Minnesota, both in Colorado and Minnesota, my practice was environmental law. So the litigation I was involved in would involve what we call judicial review primarily. And so it would be judicial review of agency actions. My client agency, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, might make rules, it might take an enforcement action, it might be involved in licensing and permitting of facilities. My specific area here was air pollution control, and so I was involved in all phases of implementation of that program, and then enforcement actions. I was involved in the permitting action for the North Shore mining taconite facilities, various, I can't remember the other ones up in Eveleth and the like. I have worked, been in court on administrative challenges to Minnesota Pollution Control Agency rules and regulations. I've also been involved in, really quite an aside, for a departure from pollution control, but there was a time when they had a glut of sex offender cases, and not at the trial level, but in the, if you will, the classification level, level 1, 2, 3. I had to participate in about 3 of those hearings. But primarily I've been involved in most every state level other than Supreme Court, and federal other than Supreme Court.
Yeah, so you bounce around a lot.
So about the different levels of courts, which cases do reach the Supreme Court?
Which cases reach the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Well, now that's an interesting question, but the cases that reach the Supreme Court, and perhaps you're speaking of the U.S. Supreme Court,
yep,
would be those for which there are provisions, and by statute that allow for that level of appeal, or where a constitutional question arises. So, and it's not every case that presents a constitutional question that is actually accepted by the court. The court has some discretion in terms of what cases it hears. For instance, I think presently there's some discussion about, I'm not sure if they are actually going to be rehearing the issue of same-sex marriage. That's one that's very topical. I don't recall what the prior decision was, but that's something that would be coming up in the not too distant future, I think. But so it's an issue of constitutional nature, and or an issue of things of states' rights versus federal rights, and whatever the in particular statutes provide. And you hear all the time about cases involving death penalty and the like.
Right. So are there like any cases that have stuck out to you over the years, like that you just got especially caught up in, or?
I am going to say that there were the cases that catch my attention are the ones that deal with intellectual property law.
Okay.
And are there the ones that are of interest to me, I don't keep track, unfortunately. I don't keep track of cases by name. It is really, for me, about the principles of law that the cases expound upon, and how those decisions ultimately might impact my practice, or how those affect my client's rights. I couldn't call out a specific case for you.
Okay.
And to become a judge, what do you have to do?
Oh, wow. I've never been a judge, but I do know that there are different ways to become a judge. You can be a judge by appointment, or you are a judge by vote. And so it just depends upon what the states or the federal requirements are, and they vary from state to state. You'll note that your state Supreme Court justices are elected. You may note that I think your Court of Appeal judges may be appointed. I don't know if once appointed you have to run again. I think maybe if once appointed you do. Criteria. The criteria I imagine would be one that you are, well, certainly that you're a licensed attorney, that you are a bright person. There
Right.
will be requirements, of course, that you are a person of I'm going to say quality, integrity, because if your ethics are in question, then you presumably would never be considered. There are certainly criteria that may not be written down or spoken, but if you have a skeleton in your closet, whatever that might be, that would be revealed, and if revealed would look bad, you might not be eligible, or considered really. You might be eligible by the criteria, but you might not be considered.
Right. So with the Federikson Byron, do they deal with a lot of other issues besides patents and?
My firm is a general practice corporate firm. We are approximately 250 lawyers. We are one of the three largest firms in the Twin Cities. So we would service clients most every legal need that they have. The spectrum of things that we work on outside of IP is estate planning, wills and trust. White collar crime. We do. I'm going to say, I know high end is probably not the right term, but we do divorces that might probably involve people that are moneyed and that have resources and assets significant resources and assets that might need protection. We do immigration work. We do entity formation, helping you set up a corporation, helping you comply with various federal and state regulations. So it's a full spectrum of legal issues that we would deal with, taxes, everything.
And so it sounds like a pretty big firm.
Earlier you mentioned the judicial review. I just want to see what your opinion is. What your opinion is on how powerful the judicial review is.
Well, the judicial review process, I mean, there are different standards for review of an agency action. And I'd say, and more than I could say about how powerful it is, and maybe this is another way of phrasing it, how important it is. Just in terms of a system of checks and balances, you have agencies out there that are authorized by statute to do certain things. You're not authorized to do anything above and beyond what comes to you by your statutory commission. And so you have various parties out there involved in a process. You have the regulated party. You have in my instance, you have public interest groups, and you have the regulator. You take an action. That action should be in compliance with the law, and that's probably the first threshold, that you're not taking action beyond your authority, that you're taking an action consistent with the law, and that your actions are reasonable and justified based upon the record before the agency. So it is a good and useful tool in order to either prove up that the agency did what it is supposed to do as it was supposed to do it, or if there's a defect in the process, to point out that defect in the process, whether it's something a failure to adhere to your own regulatory requirements, failure to provide appropriate level of due process, but ultimately it's a necessary and useful tool.
Okay, we've reached the 15 minutes.
Okay, well, do you have any, or do you have any questions?
So are you gonna edit this?
Yeah, $10 says he won't even, like, go through it. He just wants to make sure that we get the experience of, like, learning more about the judiciary system. But it was extremely appreciated that he came in and helped us out with this, especially in such short notice.
Well, my apologies in this one regard. Had I known that yours was a judicial focus, I might have taken a little time to look at something. But it's not what I do, so, and that's why you were probably looking for a judge, that's all I get.
Yeah, that's totally understandable.
Yeah, but thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for meeting with us.
That was more than